Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, fans, rock fans from around the world. Welcome to Musical Peoples and Journeys. Very first, it's about to go terribly wrong, very first video podcast. We are moving from audio to the wonderful delights of video podcasting as we're becoming so popular by request. So welcome to my lovely rock fan friends. So Chris Dunnins, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Nigel.
Good morning. Welcome to the show, Nate.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome, William.
Hello. Hello.
And welcome, Pablo, actually, aka Paul. So, go on, say hello.
Well, I was going to say hello, but I cut
you off.
Steamrolled over him.
I was just like,
in my prime. Who wants to hear the dulcet tones of our Welsh brother? What's this show all about? Well, let me tell you. So, Musical People Journeys, every month we review lots of bands and lots of the latest albums. Not going back to, Fleetwood Mac's greatest albums. No, we only review the very latest album releases that are out there. And we do it in the style, oh, you're going to love this, people. We do it in the style of a rock concert. Oh, yes. We call it a festival, and we have a couple of stages. So today, my lovely friends with me, and then tomorrow, I've got another bunch of lovely friends. And we listen to the style of a rock concert. Today, we're going to be listening to all of six bands. And the opening act is a band we've never heard of called Glacier, and the album is called A Dagon. And then next on stage, we have Tabor, and then we have Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs. That's right, you've heard it. There is a band called Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs. And then we have the releases from Feeder, and then the mighty Sabaton. But oddly, they are not the headline act, because the headline act today is an American rock band called the Band of Horses. Now you might ask, how the hell do we decide which to put on first? We simply go, hey, how many listens of this band had on Spotify? Okay, they go on top of the act, and let's see kind of what happens and what rolls. And then what we do is we have a really good chat. We argue the hell out of them about how good or how bad they were. And then we rate them out of 5, and then we have a Hall of Fame. And if the stars align, which is really rare with this lot, let me tell you, if the stars align, basically they get into a Hall of Fame. Now currently there are only like about 4 or 5 bands that have actually managed, out of the 50-60 reviews that we've done, that have actually managed to get over that rating, because we're all a little bit, well, I didn't like this or I like this, and well, our rock tastes do vary slightly, so if we all to come together, then it's a miracle. It's a miracle. And
let's also not forget that we're also highly argumentative people.
Well, I mean,
some of us have appalling taste.
Yes.
Hey, that butt.
Yes. So if you want to look back previously, we are on Spotify. So first up, now I don't know about podcast. So at the minute, I don't know how to link in a record because this is not Spotify. So we'll work that out. So you're not going to be able to hear a clip of the band. Okay.
Also, that will get us removed from YouTube if this
goes
up.
It will. We would.
Yeah, don't do that.
We would. So we can't put Spotify. But I'm sure we'll work it out at some point. Anyway, go and have a listen to the first band. There's a band called Glacier. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Glycis, maybe. And the album was called A Tartakan. Power metal band. Right. I'm going to start with you, Paul. I mean, you. What did you think, Paulo? I keep seeing your name, and your name's Paul, not Pablo. What did you think of Glacier at that time? Tell us a little about, because you do set the scene, in fairness, quite well.
Oh, well, thank you. But I'm not going to tell you that much actually about them. But Glacier described themselves as a soundtrack metal band, being inspired by the colourful soundtrack LPs of the 60s and 70s, where small audio passages from movies were linked into the songs of the album. However, for this album, Glacier have deviated away from their normal fare. by making the whole album themed about the history of Artakan, a former army commander turned into a rebel who drives the uprising of the people colonized by an historical pre-Persian empire and who becomes the main opposing force against it. Let's be clear here. This is not groundbreaking. And while I enjoyed the storytelling element of Glacier, they have clearly drawn the line in the sand and stand in the symphonic metal, or simply put, operatic metal genre. It takes some getting used to. I can't say I didn't enjoy it, but I won't deny it gave me a splitting headache either.
Well, power metal tends to do that. Nate, did this give you a splitting headache, or did it take you on a journey?
Oh God, it did take me on a journey, but I'm not entirely certain it was one I wanted to go on. I used to work in the arts as a theatre technician and sort of did bits and bobs, and so I was around opera quite a lot. And as you know, I'm also a muso. Never should the two meet, in my opinion.
What's
opera
a muso? What's a muso, Nate?
I was a musician. I'm a musician. Was a musician for many years, gigging largely in rock and metal and the like, and I've done quite a bit of composing as well. Rock and opera shouldn't meet ever. In my opinion. In fact, an opera itself should be about at least 2/3 shorter than it is. I entirely appreciate the technical ability of the singer of Glacier, particularly the female, whose name I don't know, I apologize. And it's fine, it's Rammstein, it's a Rammstein opera, right? However, I would suggest whoever let Warhammer fans pick up guitars has an awful lot to answer for.
Well, whoever invented Warhammer, Nate, has a lot to answer for.
Indeed.
Yeah, but we won't go there. We won't go into that one. So, Chris.
I love a good concept album as much as anybody else, but I need some investment into it, and when it's all just full of shreddy guitar and some warbling bin in the really, really inept storytelling, I was just it left me at the title track. I enjoyed the intro, and I had to go back and listen to it because the first time I listened to it, I turned it off. I just couldn't get through it, so I did go back and listen to it, and it was just as painful as the first time. I've got to be honest.
What do you mean by inept storytelling?
Well, okay, so I guess telling a story through a record is an art form, and some people can do it and some people cannot. And Glacier, bless their hearts, although they tried, and I totally respect that, they cannot. It's like they gave, what is it they say, you can give monkeys typewriters and eventually they'll come up with Shakespeare, but I think they gave toddlers crayons for Glacier and then just said, come up with this cool story, and they cut out all the dinosaurs and this was what they were left with.
Well, okay.
The quote is, an infinite amount of monkeys with an infinite amount of typewriters will eventually write, hey, hey, we're the monkeys.
Cool. So an infinite amount of toddlers with an infinite amount of crayons will eventually make Atagon.
Oh no,
I couldn't agree more.
Will, you are our resident power metal kind of guru. When Chris kind of found this album and said, "Oh, this sounds interesting," we listened very quickly. Went, "Oh yeah, it does. William will love this." Did William love this?
So, as a fan of not only Warhammer, crayons, and dinosaurs, I thought it was quite enjoyable. I really liked the just the general sound of it. As Nathan criticized the operatic and rock sound, I really like that. I think it's really cool. But my biggest gripe with it was all the songs that had the narrations at the beginning of it really got to me. I didn't like how it was. If you want to have a narration to set the scene, it should be in a voice you can actually properly understand, not just weird quasi-growly vocals. But the combination of the operatic female vocalist, the other clean / growly male vocals going together worked really well for me. But the only thing I could really think was the whole time it sounds like a wannabe Nightwish, which is something you should never aim to be. Nightwish, but just worse.
Yeah. I think I tend to agree with a lot of your comments there as well. I think rock and opera can go together. Operatic rock can go together, but it's got to be done. It's got to be done really well. I mean, you've got to bring everything together. And if you've not heard or listened to Camelot as example with their kind of rock operatic concept albums, then I would say go and listen to Camelot, because some of their albums are just like, they're just phenomenal, and the storytelling is just immense. And I think the problem with this, you're absolutely right, Will. That voice was so grating. It was appalling. And the storytelling was equally appalling, and the plot line was equally appalling. I mean, there's one bit where he goes off through the desert to another empire. Bearing in mind this empire is this massive empire, and goes off to this one, and he's saying, "Well, you're going to get attacked next, so give me your army." No, not unless we have a fight, and not unless you fight my champion. And I tell you what, if you kill my champion, I'll give you half my army, won't I? All right then, I'll do that then. All right. Oh, I killed the champion. Give me half your army.
I don't remember them being Cockney. I don't remember.
Oh, right. Well, that's what
I
it felt
remember
like.
one side being called Brittany and the other one being called Chardonnay.
Yeah, well, it just felt like that, didn't it? That's how it came across. It was
To be fair to them with that, a lot of ancient battles often were decided by the two champs or best fighters going against each other to save all the blood. So in that sense, it does make sense to have had them doing that to give that.
Yeah, in a battle.
Go on, Will, fight him,
I agree with you, Will. I agree with you, but not. You're next. Give me half your army, and I'll go. And if I fail, well, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna sting, this massive empire against your little empire, you're not gonna send half your army, are you? If you're gonna go in balls deep. You're gonna go the whole way, anyway, the storytelling was just the.
You don't want to take your whole army, right?
I agree with you, Will, but you're wrong. You're wrong.
You don't want to take your whole army, right? Because then you leave your land undefended.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, but if
it's
you
just
fail,
bad logistics, isn't it?
It is. But if you fail, that big, you're dead. You're committed. If you're committed, you're committed. But anyway, the storytelling was just.
We have stopped talking about the music.
Well, we're talking about the album, aren't we? We're talking about the album, and
Do you reckon it's better on stage? I reckon it's better on stage.
I reckon it'll be really, really cool on stage.
I think
with a budget, though. With a budget. Because if you see this down the pub on a Saturday.
Because don't get me wrong, there were some great moments. I mean, the problem was it didn't blend. Her operatic voice and the rock voice didn't blend. But there were moments where it was pure magic. I mean, when she actually stopped shrilling and screaming and actually started just singing, she was amazing. Her voice was amazing. And there were a couple of tracks where you go, oh, God, yes. But there was a lot of it that just wasn't. And it just didn't all... I applaud the effort, but I think... I was talking to Paul about it, and I think this is maybe the guy who put this together. This is like his 12th album, so it's not like his first gig. Because I was saying, well, credit where credit's due. It's good effort, but it just didn't quite all come together. So, anyway, let's find out. Will, and I fancy they're not, get into our hallowed Hall of Fame? Where will they sit in the overall glories? Let's find out. Paul, let's give your rating out of 5 on this one.
At 2. I've listened to it. I will not listen to it again.
Yeah. Nate?
1, because they managed to stumble into some instruments.
Chris?
1 out of 5, 10 out of 10, do not recommend.
And Will? Sorry?
I don't want to say it anymore. I mean, 3.5. It was good effort, but
mate, I think you might well have just saved them from the ignorance of being below Neil Diamond.
It's fine. I'll make up for it by insulting every other album.
Yeah, absolutely fine. I give it a 1.5. I think it was all right. So 4, 7.5, 9. That's actually I mean, our lowest rating is you know, they get down to a 6. So yeah, 9. It's all right. But in the top 50, maybe. Who knows? So who is next? Well, welcome to the stage. If you can, and you've got to live in our virtual world here, people. Okay, we live in a virtual. This is a virtual concert. Okay, so if you can picture this, next on our stage is an artist called Tabor, and the album is called Shades. So now let's go to the person who will throw the most shade and has thrown the most shade on our shows. Chris Dunnins.
Wait a minute, if we're going to a virtual festival, can someone bring me a virtual beer, please?
A virtual
yeah,
beer.
there we go. Got some virtual
Thanks.
beer.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we got some beer.
Tabor.
And no virtual piss throwing either.
No piss bottles today.
Okay.
Well, there's always time. I'll never say never. Tabor was... Okay, we have a history on the show that the little guy always tends to do better, because also we're just not as mean to them because they are the little guy. Tabor was actually a really pleasant surprise for me. It wasn't standout. It wasn't mind-blowing. I didn't find my face being melted or anything, but it was just a really pleasant album. I had it on in the background. I would definitely put it on in the background again. I'm not sure that it would ever come to the forefront, but if you got it on while you're doing other things, it was actually really good.
Did it resonate with you? Would you describe it as did you see any influences there? Was it like another artist at all?
No, they kind of did their own thing, but that's kind of what I respect, is the fact that they're not breaking boundaries. And as much as a cunning linguist as I like to be, that album was just nice. It wasn't unpleasant, you know, just tepid nice. It was nice.
Nice. Okay. Will, I mean, what did are you going to throw some shades here or put your shades on?
No, it was just pretty much like Chris said. It was just a sort of an average, pleasant album to listen to. The vocals were a bit too air for me. I don't like his voice that much, but the instrumentals and all of that was quite enjoyable. So it was just a nice average album. I might listen to it again. Wouldn't necessarily skip it if it came on, but not huge in my cup of tea. Not bad.
Well, was it a musician's album? Do you feel that a musician would maybe resonate with him, or will Nate throw some shade?
I liked it, but I do have some notes.
Okay, well, I hope you do.
All right, okay. So I kind of like the garage sounds, like rock. They remind me a little bit of early Oasis. In fact, like "Come Home" could easily have been sung by Liam Gallagher, and it would sound awesome, I think. But it's very, very, very simple production, where it's bass and solos straight down the middle with guitars flanking out to the left and right. For me, I would have added some guitars closer to the middle and boosted the higher frequencies, because it sounded really muddy in places. However, I got to Your Fantasy, and
My Fantasy.
Not Your Fantasy. I'm Your Fantasy.
Oh,
I
I'm
mean, the
Fantasy.
song Your Fantasy.
No, it was anywhere near Your Fantasy, Nigel.
Your
I don't know.
Fantasy is
Maybe.
where it all works. The arrangement of it is fantastic. It's got a really unexpected little mid-late in it, which is a really great reprieve from sort of the over distortion. There's a great blues solo. On that track, everything that they're trying to do throughout the album totally works. I'd listen to that track again and again. The rest of the album was fine. As you say, it's a nice listen. I would love to know if all of the production choices, especially the drums, were a choice, or whether it was budgetary. Because it sounds like an album made in a day to me. And that can be awesome. Some of the best albums are. But I'd love to know if it was a choice, or whether it was timing or budget or whatever. But yeah, cool album.
Paul, what did your in-depth research tell you about Tabor?
Oh, Tabor is the front man for King's X, regarded as the originator of grunge. and is regarded as something as a guitarist's guitarist. Shades is his latest solo album. He's his 11th in 25 years. He's also done the same amount with a number of albums with King's X, who haven't released anything for 14 years. So he's no amateur. Yet it seems he is trying to find some sort of identity with this album. In previous albums, his songs revolve around a main riff, and as he says himself, you won't really find any of that on Shades. In fact, this album is a representation of Ty's softer edge. On times, it's more pop rock than hard rock, yet there are moments in the harmonies, melodies, and atmospheric sounds that he creates where you begin to understand who the real Ty Tabor is. I've listened to the album about 5 or 6 times, and with each listen, it has grown on me. And yes, I believe Ty Tabor is an overlooked artist. At the end of the day, Shades covers such a wide variety of rock that many an artist would pale at the thought of undertaking.
Oh, well. Wow, that's how you write a review, people. That's how you write a review. Anyway.
Goodness.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because I think me and Paul were talking about a different artist, and I thought we were talking about this one, and Paul was mentioning about the fact that this other artist he felt was a bit like Tom Petty. And when I re-listened to this album, I thought I could hear Tom Petty. I really could. And there was a lot of that in there. And then when Paul said, "No, well," I said, that's what I heard. That's the sort of music that I heard. And actually, when I got into, I couldn't quite make him out the first listen. And then when I listened to the second, thinking, actually, yeah, there is a bit of like Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne, that sort of composition to his music, and that sort of rolling kind of rock. It was a pleasant listen. Did I put any of his songs from this album onto my what I call my cool songs list? I really want to hear that song again, and so it's going on my cool song list. No, I didn't, but I did enjoy listening to the album, and it did kind of feel it felt pleasant, without me giving that kind of wow factor, if you like. So yeah, I mean, it was just it was a nice album. And maybe musically, Nate might be right. Maybe the production didn't kind of set it alight. I don't know. I'm not. I don't have that sort of level of technical aspect. But it was a nice album. So
I'll say this: I did not know his grunge credentials. I tend to not research what we listen to too hard. I don't want to go in like bias or whatever. So with that sort of level of grunge credential, you got to think it's a choice. And I totally agree with Paul's Tom Petty statement.
That was me.
But Paul said it to you.
I did, but he didn't mean this band. He was talking about somebody else.
Listen to that. Well, this sounds like the lo-fi sort of recording. It's got to be a choice. He's a grunger. You don't overspend on production. You let the music do the talking. So good for them.
So we've lost Chris, unfortunately, from that score.
May he rest in peace.
Maybe Chris will rest in peace, but
his PC rests in peace.
Yeah, his PC has died. His internet, but I've just had a message by his phone that his power's gone, and so his internet has died basically. But he said he'll send his notes through. So we've lost Chris. The power is now in our hands. Ha ha! There is hope yet for us. So let us find out. Well, actually, Chris still gets to vote, so his vote still counts. His opinions don't matter. But then we know Chris's opinions don't matter. We knew that anyway, so it doesn't matter. So let's find out. Chris. I know, right? Will,
is that a power cut? Is that what's going on?
That's what he said. His internet has died. But there we go. So, let's find out. You rate Will.
3. It was an album.
3. Nate.
3.
3. Paul.
3.5.
3.5.
Ooh. It up. I like it.
Mine is also. This is going to be a shock, people. A 3.
Oh,
so there we go.
My gosh.
I know, right? I mean,
I've gone into my seat.
And for our listeners, I reckon Chris probably end up on to 3 as well, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
Because it's very rare. This is a rare thing, people, that we all actually align to within half a point of each other. I mean, it's super, 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 super rare. Right, okay. Next, if you can picture it, is a band called, an American rock band called Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs. There we go. It's called Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs. So we're going to start, Nate, with you, with a bit of Mike Campbell. What do you think of them?
Yeah, this won't take long. Iggy Pop did it better. Good country fun. Won't ever listen to it again. Didn't hate it. There you go.
Really? Okay. What do you think of the name of the band?
I think he's gonna find it tricky. Google wise.
Their SEO is shot to pot. No Facebook advertising for them because they'll get banned. We know all about that. But there we go. Paul, what about you? What about Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs? Just give us some background about what.
I'm going to give you loads of it. I'm going to make up for Nate's short review there. Okay, Mike Campbell shouldn't need an introduction, but unfortunately he does. At age 72, he's been in the music industry for 50 years. Most of the time, 72.
Wow.
Most of that time was spent
Should
as
be a lot better than he is.
Well, wait. Most of that time was spent as a member of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers band.
You were talking about this guy when you were talking.
I was talking about this guy. Yeah.
Right, fair enough.
A guitarist, a songwriter, producer. And besides co-writing many hits with Tom Petty, he composed and played on Don Henley's hit The Boys of Summer and wrote songs for the likes of Bob Dylan, Fleetwood Mac, Johnny Cash, Steve Nicks, Tracy Chapman, and so many more. The guy has been prolific. He says he wrote more songs than Tom Petty could use, so he formed a band of friends called Dirty Knobs. They released a single called Feeling High in 2010. Right, let's get the elephant out of the room here. The band's name, Dirty Knobs. In the UK, knob is a slang word for penis, so it seems a bit puzzling why they should name a band that to us means dirty penises. In the US of A, knob is the slang for women that wear their hair in ponytails or their hair up in a bun. And 79%, because I did check surveys of times, that is what they mean by the term. While in the music industry, the knob, the controls of many pieces of audio gear are referred to as knobs. I guess Mike.
You'd think a musician would know that.
Yeah, I do know that.
Yeah,
I do.
I guess Mike didn't invest his time in understanding the urban slang of his band's name.
Or WD-40 by the sounds of it. But...
Yeah, but then again, he may have. When Tom Petty died in 2017, a couple of weeks after playing the American Bowl, it also meant the end of the Heartbreakers. Mike toured with Fleetwood Mac as a guitarist on the 2018 and 19 tours, and then released the first Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs album, Reckless Abandon, in 2020. And I was followed up this year with a turn on Combustion, and has been on tour with Chris Stapleton. Now,
fucking hell.
Man.
It gets worse for Nathan.
Poor man.
Jesus.
Now, I didn't know all this, and I haven't been a lifelong fan of Jeff Lynne. The first time I listened to the album, I very much thought this was someone trying to be the Traveling Wilburys, or that Jeff Lynne had produced it, and as often is the case, had penned some of the songs. Even after several listens, I still got that impression. The music is grittier than what Tom Petty and his fellow Wilburys produced in several albums, but the genre, music formula, etc. is the same. The music has plenty of variety, and the appearance of Ian Hunter of Mott the Hoople fame and up-and-coming country star Margot Price does spice it up or tone it down depending on your point of view. For me, I've enjoyed some of Tom Petty's songs over the years, but found him to be too samey to be invested in following his career. I can't say Mike Campbell is just like Tom Petty, though on times to me, he did sound like him. However, Mike's offers far more variety in his musicianship. and yet songs like Cheap Talk and Lightning Boogie come straight out of the Lynn Jeff songbook, which kind of throws me on his originality. If this album had come out after the Wilburys had closed shop, it would have been a huge hit. At first, this album was a pleasant listen to, but over the month it has gathered gravity, and I greatly appreciate the overall quality of the songs on the album. One could call it heartland rock, but again, Mike's guitar work is grittier and far too clever to call it that.
Well, now that's really interesting. Super interesting. Will, did you like his guitar work? Did you internally combust?
I'm going to take the Nathan approach here. It was just kind of generic, boring sounding country shit, wasn't it? I don't really like country very much. It bores me, annoys me. No, it was just country, wasn't it? Wicked Mind was alright.
No, I disagree. I think
country,
some of it was country rock. I agree, but I think I think that there lies the problem. And I agree with Paul in terms of variation, and I think it was and I know because when I was talking to Chris about this, we both actually felt that the album was a bit psychotic, and because it was just all over the place, and if you're going to make an album, it's maybe segment it, have a section of doing stuff. But he literally would jump, from that Margot girl, which was really kind of nice, and then he would jump into something else, and then he would switch back to her, and it was just a little bit all over the place. And I like variation in my albums, but I like it to be, hey, if you're going to do that, do it super well. And I think it was a bit, I'm going to have a crack at this bit, and then I'm going to have a crack at this bit, and without really excelling in any of those bits, and so it didn't make it. It was okay. It just didn't make it a very kind of overall pleasant kind of listen. And none of his songs really either grabbed me either. Really, from Michael Perilous. Did I appreciate it? Yes. It was okay. It was a little bit of fun, but it didn't fully kind of resonate with me because it was just a little bit all over the place. So that's Mike Pat, and Paul, thanks for mentioning it. The album is called External, not internal, External Combustion. Some of us obviously did combust at having to listen to this album. Others didn't. But let's swiftly move on. Let's find our ratings for a bit of Mike Campbell. Nate.
2, and it seems to me, Paul, from everything that you said, he's a bit of a Bob Dylan in that his best work was done by everyone else.
Or maybe not. And look, I agree with everything that's been said. But I ended up listening to this album about 8 or 9 times over the month.
Wow.
And by then
did you Spotify break?
No, I listened to all of these albums. I give them all about, except Glacier, about 5 or 6 listens. Or two of them, this one and the next album, I listened to 8 or 9 times. So
yeah, I give this album about 3, and then I couldn't listen to it anymore. But,
yeah. So, but it grew on me more and more, and I appreciate it. And I got to think, the guy is so prolific that he wrote a lot of songs for these people that you may have identified as Bob Dylan or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, Paul, what did you give it?
So it's a 4.5 for me.
4.5.
Bloody
hell.
Jesus,
Nearly
man.
a golden
Jesus.
buzzer. Wowzers. Will.
Much like the number of listens I graced it with, it's 2.
A 2. That's quite
It's
good.
more than it deserved. It's more than it deserved.
I think it was better. I think it was slightly better than that. I think it was an average album, but it was all right. I give it a 3. So anyway, we'll kind of see what Chris comes back with, and it's not going to attain the hallowed Hall of Fame, but I mean, it's done all right. I mean, it's into double figures, so it's worth a listen. I think is really what we're saying here. If you like that sort of genre of music. It's definitely worth checking out Mike Campbell and the Dirty People with Hair.
Yeah, if you like the Traveling Wilburys, you will like this one. It'll take some getting into, but yeah, and I mean, I must have listened to the Traveling Wilburys albums about 100 times, 200 times a piece. So, yeah.
I don't
Okay.
want to be included in the we think we should listen to it.
Yeah, no,
Because,
yeah, definitely. So, right, we're going to move on.
This half disagrees.
We're now into the second half of the concert, and we welcome to the stage our pawn. It's our Welsh brothers. It's Feeder. Welcome back, Feeder, for the first time in, I think it's about 11 years, with their new album called Torpedeo. So I've got to start with you, Paul, because they are our Welsh brethren. So let's start with you. What did you think of Feeder and Torpedo?
Yeah, Feeder have been classed as a Brit rock band for over 30 years now, and on times they've strayed into the Brit pop crossover during their career. But their 11th album, Torpedo, they have revisited the original days with a far heavier album than they produced in many a year. On this album, there's always a monstrous riff waiting around the corner. Songs like the title track Torpedo and Decompress fall into the grunge realm, while the opening track, The Healing, starts with a U2 string melody before cruising into neo-Metallica mode halfway through. As such, the Torpedo album takes some listening to. It feels all over the place. After repeated listens, you can start to make sense of what Feeder are trying to do, and by then the anthemic riffs have grabbed hold of you, and you find yourself nodding in approval at the gritty electrica buzz of Magpie, or the sheer variety of rock shown on the album. I enjoyed it.
Well, Will, did Feeder feed your musical soul? Did it touch your musical taste, your rock taste in any fashion?
Firstly, I have one question. What does Paul define as a monstrous riff?
I don't know, Paul. How do you define a monstrous riff?
I need to know this first.
It's well, it's a guitar riff that, it just comes out the blue sort of thing. It hits you. So yeah, not like heavy metal, which is something to me is totally different.
Much like a monster coming out of the blue and hitting me. I don't want any part of this.
We've already done Mike Campbell and the Dirty Knobs, mate. So let's not kind of go there.
Oh, I've got more. It's fine. Don't worry. For me, this was just kind of boring indie trash. I really don't like sort of indie music and alternative stuff like that. It's just not enough going on. The way the vocals are recorded and sung really annoys me and gets to me. I did like that some of them were heavier. Like Tornado was, had some good instruments, but it's just indie trash, isn't it? No, I want to listen to music with my music.
Oh, so Feeder has starved William of musical sojourn. Nate, my musician.
Yeah, I should. I suppose you don't know this, but a lot of people, if they listen to this, my friends or whatever, they probably think I have a soft spot for Feeder, because when lockdown first happened, I got a load of musicians together over Zoom, and got a load of people to re-record the Just a Day video, which was Feeder's like hit from back in the day, and I redid the video, and we got like a good few thousand plays and stuff. Despite that, I have not got a single soft spot for Feeder. They sound like a band. If you like go to a summer fete, or like, an Easter fete on the village green, and they get some local indie band to play, that's what they sound like. And they should know better at this point. Also, the fact that I think the first song, The Healing, takes 3.5 minutes to get to that heavy, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Paul did Metallica-esque riff, which we'll need to have a talk, Paul, but it takes 3.5 minutes to get there, and it's a 6-minute song. They have had number ones. They know better than that. They know better than that. And one of the lyrics is, "We still have time." And I'm like, fuck, do you really? do you really still have time? I wondered if it was a message to like the engineer, like, strap in, lad, we're here for the day. yeah, man, they should know better or never listen to it again.
It's really interesting because Will and Nate, there's just a lot of bollocks, to be honest with you. I kind of see where you're coming from for the first two tracks. I'm with you, Nate. The first two tracks are bog awful. Healing and Torpedo are...
And I didn't make it past the first two, I'll be honest.
Oh, well, you
I
should
didn't
have
make
done.
it past the first two.
You
No,
should've-
you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. It's an album.
No. Listen. You should have done, because the rest of the album is absolutely terrific. The first two songs.
Why didn't they put those songs first then?
Mate, I'm not disagreeing here, because I get so annoyed at artists like this who put their really... I mean, if you're going to put your fillers in, put them at the album, because Healing is an awful song and Torpedo is much better. But then when then there's I think it's hold on, I'll just tell you which the track that came after that.
Torpedo was better.
After that, the fucking album comes alive. After that, Magpie, it comes alive. It does get a little bit heavier. It does get a little bit grungy, and it's a super album. Just don't listen to the first two tracks, because they're bog awful. They are indie pap. After that, the album gets really good.
You sound like you're annoyed at me.
No, I'm not. I'm annoyed at them because other people like yourself will listen to that. Will do exactly the same, and I nearly did the same. And in fact, I said to Trish, who's on tomorrow on the other stage, she's there, and I went, listen, actually just skip the first two. And then she did that, and actually I got a text from her saying, actually, Magpie, blah, 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 actually the rest of the album is pretty darn good. It's just so... I'm frustrated. I had this with Sea Lions, or an album that we did, Sea Power, and they just put just an awful first song in there. But when I think the album I got on my first song was When It All Breaks Down, and then after that, it's a super album. Just those first two tracks are awful.
Problem is, though, right? When you're releasing an album, then you want people to listen to the album, and because those first two are so shockingly bad,
I agree.
There's no point in having an album at all.
Well,
the concept of albums essentially are dead now anyway. Like, the whole point of an album was when it was an LP, and you sat down and it was a listening experience. As soon as they invented the skip button, albums became essentially redundant unless you get into concepts, because people will just listen to their favorite tracks. So in a sense, Nigel's right. People will just skip the first two tracks, but this is an album review, and if the first two songs made three of us not want to listen to any more, whether we did or not, because of wanting to review the album, that's bad juju from number one artist, Nigel, from number ones.
No, I agree. But actually, as an album review, you should have actually then carried on listening to see what the rest of the album was like, rather than...
No, my headphones broke. They wouldn't.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Nath. But as an album listener to over the years, I mean. I've listened to albums 20 times.
Sure.
Before I've given it. And when Slayer came out, somebody was raving about them. Give me the album. And I thought, right, I'll give this a good listen to. I listened to it over and over and over again. And yeah, I mean, after 20 times, I had to admit, they just weren't for me,
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got to give an whole album a number of listens to appreciate whether you really do like them. I think one listen to, I did listen to the two songs and say, nah, this album's not for me. It's rubbish. It's a bit of a
I don't think it's rubbish. I don't think it's rubbish. I think it's for someone. But I'm here to give my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, just speak down. No, I'm not criticising you for not listening to the album. You switch off after two. I'm just going, that's a shame. And I'm criticising Feeder for putting, and I did this with Sea Power the other day when their first track was just awful, and whoever wrote it needed shooting, but whoever put their first track on an album needed shooting as well, because actually some of the tracks on there were really good. But it's a shame, because actually some of the tracks on this album were really good. Magpie, When It All Breaks Down, they were just really good, and I was with the first two tracks. William was with you. I think this is going to be indie pap, and I don't mind indie rock.
Oh, I love indie
rock.
Yeah,
I would say go back and revisit and actually have a listen to the rest of the album, because it is so much better after those first two tracks. Even Torpedo was a bit naff, but
I absolutely will, because no, I respect your opinion. I respect Paul's opinion. I absolutely will go and listen to the rest of it.
Yeah.
But if you turn off after first
I
two
agree.
songs, man, it's got a.
Oh, I know, I stuck with it just to go. Well, let's see what it's like. But yeah, because that healing song was just what the hell.
Also, it should be clear, no one on here. I know this is first video podcast. No one on here is saying that anything is rubbish. We're just saying it's not for us,
Correct. Oh, it's our personal opinions,
and
Our
that will
personal
become key probably when we talk about the next band. I reckon.
Well, let's find out our ratings. Paul, Peter.
He can't hear you, mate.
He's got a mute. Why would you do this on our
You're on
live
mute.
recording?
Pablo,
Why did you do
Pablo.
this?
Come on, Pablo.
Back to us.
I'm torpedoing you. Yeah, 3.5.
3.5. Will.
I'm sticking with 2.
2. Nate.
I gave it 1. I think it's inexcusable.
I actually really love this album, and if it wasn't for the first 2 tracks, it would have got a golden buzzer. 4.5.
Wow.
Loved it. I loved the rest of the album. Just those first two tracks, but I mean, 2 or 3 songs made it to my cool playlist. So, but it was absolutely terrific. So, okay, so let's move on to there's only one. I just like. Do I introduce this, or do I let the mighty Sabaton fan do it? No, what the hell? It's my job. So this is Sabaton, and he put his background down. Sabaton. The album is "The War to End All Wars," and you might have noticed the T-shirt. We have a Sabaton fan, a massive Sabaton fan in the house. He's so excited by when this album was released. Will, let's start with you, shall we?
I've dabbled in the listening of Sabaton in my
Dabbled. Every album, I would imagine.
Every album, hundreds of times. They are a fucking fantastic band. So I kind of want to just steal the history thing that Paul does with all the bands.
No, do it.
Sabaton formed 1999, etc. You know, listening to Judas Priest and bands like that, like, oh, maybe one day we can be that good and play
kidding.
Wagen. You know, they've released, I think this is their 10th studio album, the second one based purely on World War One. Oh, it's great. So Sabaton, right? Just want to put it out there. Despite all of their songs being about war and history of war, they don't support war. just putting it out there. War's a bad thing. Don't do it.
I don't think in any of those songs they actually glorified the fact that.
Just putting it out there for people. And as not to hijack the whole festival style, according to Spotify, as these are the biggest band that we're reviewing this week.
They're not.
No, they're not.
They're not.
Well,
We've got another act after Sabaton. In your opinion.
I was listening again this morning. Sabaton 2.7 million. The other one was about 2.3, 2.4 million listeners.
Well, maybe it was a
Which
particular song.
that's
A lot of them are me, Will, because I love them so much.
Oh, I'm glad.
I think it's based on the most successful listened song they've had.
Yeah, it's the most successful song listened to. So yeah.
Wow.
So
I thought it was meant for listeners. Go.
No.
So the Great War to End All, well, the War to End All Wars is their second album based purely on a single point in history. The last one being the Great War, which came out in I think it was 2019, which they wanted to tell more stories about the First World War because there's so many small events people don't know about. Couldn't fit it in one album, release another one. It's from the first track. I say the first track. You probably won't have listened to it if you're listening on Spotify. The first track on the album is a song called Sarajevo, which sets the scene, tells the story of Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination. It's not on the digital versions, but on the physical copy of the CD and the history edition, it's there. Then going to Stormtroopers, about the German Sturmtruppen, or German shock troops. Dreadnought, obviously the Dreadnought class battleship, all the way to other things that people won't know about, the Battle of Dorian, the British against the Bulgarians, which was a slaughter for the British. the White Friday event, which was reported to kill 2,000 people in the Italian Alps when an avalanche was triggered. Oh, this album's fantastic. You really, for me at least, I often, like to fully immerse myself in the music, which is why, when there's lackluster albums for me, I can't get into it. But songs like Dreadnought, it has that almost slow, impenetrable march in the music that's going along. As you can imagine, these huge battleships going through the ocean, stormtroopers is much more faster paced theme to resemble the fast-paced shock tactics these troops used. The Hellfighters, the sort of chaotic move as the Harlem Hellfighters encountered fighting the Ardennes and all those other places.
So with the Hellfighters, basically, were they German troops or British troops?
American. It was a all-black American battalion.
Wow.
Who came known as the Harlem Hellfighters.
So was the second album better than the first?
I think it was. I found myself listening to more of the album as a whole than I did with The Great War. There were 2 songs in The Great War that I couldn't get as into. But with this one, every song pulled me in more, wanting to learn more about the specific subjects. I'd never known that with Lady of the Dark, there was this Serbian soldier who'd disguised herself as her brother so he wouldn't have to go and fight in the war, and became one of the most decorated female soldiers in history after taking her brother's place because she didn't want him to go and be killed in this horrible war.
And then obviously wraps it up with the story of the Treaty of Versailles.
And then Versailles ending with the narrator's ominous words of, the war may be over, but for some people the war never ends.
Yeah.
Foreshadowing that war bad, people like it though. And they're wrong.
War bad, people like it.
War bad, don't do it.
Nate,
the moral of today's story.
Nate, are you...
I'm gonna go cry now, don't mind me.
Are you a Sabaton fan? Are you a Sabaton fan, Nate? Was this album the war to end war, or the album to end all albums?
I've written a poem.
You've written a poem? Wow.
In the theme of World War One, we have poems now. Excellent.
Okay. Am I okay to do this?
Yeah, of course you are. Why would you not? It's a poem. Wow. We'll go with that eyebrow.
So, I lay still in the dark, earphones ready in place. It's time for some metal, and Will says they're great. What a treating of an evening, what a joy for the soul. I just know that I'll love this. But that's not what unfolds. Oh, Sabaton, Sabaton, my dreams you have shat upon. How dare you defile my recommended list? Oh, Sabaton, Sabaton, the misplaced hope I had is gone. But I promised a review, so here goes. It's this. Ooh, as I break everything. First up is the singer whose teeth should be removed by force. His family murdered, but I'm joking, of course. But all jokes aside, just get in the bin or jump in the sea, preferably if you can't swim. Lyrically fine, I see you've done the work, but the delivery is revolting, like Nige trying to twerk. I won't touch on bass, as the band didn't either. May as well not be there, give the sound tech a breather. Galloping, galloping, always fucking galloping. Did you learn no other rhythm? How can this be happening? Never has anything galloped so long and achieved almost nothing but murdering song. I fear for the drummer, they know only one beat, that so cliched pattern they're doomed to repeat. Feet bleeding, sweat beading, speed breathing, chest heaving. I'm pleading, conceding, I'm grieving, I'm leaving. Force feeding the listener, mistreating my speakers, proceeding to murder, impeding the genre, misleading the dum-dums that mistake speed for talent, forgetting as all things, music needs balance. More than one tempo, more than one dynamic, less than 6 solos, we get it, you practice. And whilst on guitars, let me make one thing clear, sweep picking is cool. Any time of the year. It's hard to do slowly, it's hard to do quick, it's hard to do properly. But what gives me the shits is that if you, whoever you are, were to sit in your room for days, weeks and months, maybe you could do that sweet picking too. It's just fucking practice, nothing special, nothing new. Reminds me of Sabaton, nothing special, nothing new. They've stolen from Maiden and others less famous and made something brazenly awful and tasteless. The war to end wars, or whatever the fuck, a pantomime blitzkrieg through warfare and such. My analysis is ear paralysis. Their songs poison chalices, a bunch of warhammer twats vainly tugging their phalluses. If this is your bag, though, hurrah for you, enjoy it all you please. I ask only one favor in return, keep it the fuck away from me.
Wow! Wow! We have. Oh, look, he's crying. He's crying. Oh, I mean, wow.
Knew that was
What, mate? I'm publishing that poem. That poem is going. That is fucking awesome. Awesome. Whether I agree with it or not, don't fucking matter. That was an awesome review. Absolutely awesome. Wow, what a poem, Paul. For once, I don't think you can beat that.
For once, I don't
You're
think I
not going to
can.
beat that one. I don't give a shit what you say. You're not going to beat that.
I'm not going to be able to follow that up. However, I must admit that I was disappointed with Sabaton.
So was I.
Famed for their power metal drinking style, I had my tankard at the ready for a right old laugh. But apart from Unkillable Soldier, where I thought, here we go, they couldn't resist. But no, that type of sing-along theme power metal was quickly thrown aside and a full head banging track was revealed. I barely had a chance to raise my vice beard Phil Stein except to salute this heavy metal mayhem. There are two versions of the War to End All Wars album, the standard and the history edition, as Will has already mentioned, with narrator Beth and Dixon.
It's three, apparently, but there we go. We'll come back to that. We can have your rebuttal in a minute, Will.
Okay, with Beth and Dixon Bate as an English voice actress recognised on many gaming voiceovers, given a snippet of information about what each song is about. I've listened to both several times to see which I preferred, and after hearing Bethan's commentary so many times, I felt I didn't need to hear that for repeated listens. I was wrong. It is clearly the better offering, giving you that breathing space to digest and put you in the mood for what is speeding your way. However, I do seriously believe Sabaton are desperate to try to get a slot on the History Channel. The previous album, The Great War, was also about World War One, and as Will also mentioned, the last track on the War to End All Wars points out with the warning, "War will never die. War will never entirely die, and will return sooner than we think." So I guess the next 2 or 3 outings are going to be concept albums about World War II. I wish they could switch it up about something new. However, having said that, I did look up the history of the British battleship, the Dreadnought, which was partly responsible for the cause of World War One, and also Belgium's King Albert I leading his army in the race to the sea. And not just for those reasons, it has clearly been the standout heavy metal album for me this year so far.
Well, where is the penny going to drop? Where am I? I am going to fundamentally agree with somebody, and that somebody is fundamentally Will, because this album for me, I kind of get where Nate's coming from in terms of its repetitiveness, but it resonated, it spoke to me, and I love the fact that the thing is, for me, an album has to transport you somewhere. Something like this, like we've reviewed power metal albums and that sort of stuff, and really, to be honest with you, if the storyline is a bit naff like Glycian, you don't really get immersed into the actual lyrics and the actual story itself. I did get immersed in this, and I didn't even go into the fact is I could visualise those stormtroopers, and I could visualise. It almost felt steampunky in some ways as well, if you didn't really know the history of it and the Hellfighters, and I love the musicality of it. I thought it really kind of spoke to me. I like maybe that the words that they put together. I enjoy that sort of music. It speaks to me, and I love the lyricism. I thought it was very poetic in a lot of ways. And I thought some of the riffs were excellent, though repetitive. Didn't matter for me. It still spoke to me. I love this album, and I think several of the tracks hit my cool playlist. You know, Stormtroopers, Dreadnoughts, and I can't remember the one where the Immortal Sentinel kind of guarding the hills. I just love
Soldier
that
of Heaven.
track. I love that track as well. Absolutely love that track as well. I love this album. One of my, I wouldn't say it's my favourite of the year, but certainly it's going to get onto my absolute cool list.
I feel like I've been ambushed by 3 Sabaton fans because I feel like you've kicked Chris Dunnings out of this because he was my only ally.
Well, he will send me his ratings, and his ratings, we won't hear his opinions, but his ratings will count.
Oh, I can tell you his opinion.
And I know I did speak to Chris, and he thought it was okay. He didn't really thoroughly enjoy it that much, but
that's not what he told me.
Yeah, well, yeah. So no, and it was not my fault. You know, we lined up in battle, and your ally pissed off. So I mean, we can't help for that. But his rating will count, which means that we'll find out. We'll find that out later on.
Do you have any rebuttal to me, Will? No.
I'm very upset. No, I mean, to be fair, it's as we've all discovered from our insulting the ones and then probably like, oh, it's really good. It's opinion, isn't it? War and albums like this aren't for everyone. I've tried showing people Sabaton many times because they're my favorite band, and they've just been like, it's not for me. And I was like, that's fair enough. If you don't like it, that's
for me. I don't even think it's the band. I think it's theatre. So for me, Sabaton is pantomime, and it's over the top and brash and in your face and cliched and all the rest of it. And pantomime sort of makes me cringe. It sort of lacks a nuance. But I actually, in talking to my partner, it's my fault. I'm the asshole for not liking it, and I'll tell you why. I hate that people think that it's technical. That's what I hate. It's not actually the music, it's not the lyrics, it's not the concept. It's that people think it's brilliant.
So for me, technically, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Is it a earworm? Does it?
Yeah, no, I get that.
I don't know technical. I mean, the fact you said there was no bass in it. Oh, really? I didn't know.
No, there's definitely bass in it, but they're just playing root notes.
Yeah.
Not everything has to be progressing a genre.
Yeah.
For sure, but it's just.
I think musically and lyrically fit together beautifully. The timing is impeccable, and that takes some doing. So, but yeah.
Sure.
It's just a thing where you've spent so long in your life learning music, and doing that, you can't not look at an album with an unbiased view, not taking into account how they've written it. It's the same with me in film. I've got a qualification in creative media. I can't watch films or TV shows solely for enjoyment without critiquing every single thing that happens.
Absolutely.
Someone's like, this is the best film this year. And I'm like,
no,
that film's shit, look at that. Look at everything they did wrong. It's like, oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I suppose what I'm trying to say is it's not Sabaton I hate. It's you, Will.
I mean, that's understandable, to be fair.
I love you, man. I'm so sorry.
We know that's not true. He's got Will pinned up on his desk. And
Will, I'm with you. I was a Judas Priest fan for many years, and every time I mentioned the word, people would run out the room or whatever. I mean, so yeah, so definitely.
Okay, let's get on. I think, and we call it our golden buzzer moment when it hits a 5. This could be our first golden buzzer. Will! Yeah. 5 golden buzzer! Time for William!
I don't even say it, do I?
Nate?
1.
Paul?
4.5.
4.5.
There was, and it didn't get a 5 because there was 1 or 2 songs I didn't think they could have been stronger on that. It could have made the album stronger.
I agree.
Different song choices, not all of them, Nate. Just 1 or 2. Right? I think it was the Christmas song. I just the Christmas Truce one. I didn't really. It didn't feel strong enough for the album, in my opinion. But there we are.
Okay. Second golden buzzer. 55555 all the way. Definitely getting onto my. I've got a song list called The Five, which basically I have to like. I have to love 60% of the album, and then the rest of the album was I just liked. And to get onto my 5 rated album list, and this hits the 5 button all the way. Cracking album. Wish it was the headline, wasn't. So unfortunately, Will, that currently puts it on 50.5. Chris would have to give it a 4.5 for it to get into our Hall of Fame. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It might squeeze into our top 20, which is a total travesty, Will. Total travesty with you, 100%.
But at least, Will, you've picked up 2 new fans of Sabaton.
Can I knock it up? I can knock it up a bit if that'll.
No takesy back. We do not takesy back on this album.
1.25.
We do not takesy back. We do not takesy back. You can live to regret it, but there's no take backs on this.
Oh
one.
No, I'll sleep easy. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. So the headline act, and only because their song called "Funeral" had more plays than anything on Spotify and the most plays. Maybe we need to look at Will's version of a headline act, but it's academic anyway. Band of Horses. Things are great. Are they though? Are they great? Were they worthy of a headline act? Well, based on previous stuff, most of our headlines acts aren't worthy of the headline act. Paul, I'm going to start with you because we need to know a little bit about the Band of Horses, because I'd never heard of them and I was a bit shocked that they were going to be our headline act. So, Band of Horses, Paul, take it away.
Okay then. All right. Band of Horses rose to prominence in the indie rock scene with a debut album, Everything All the Time, and their showstopper, The Funeral, which is also the reason why they're headlined in the stage. However, no one has done more than Ben Brindle, the lead singer guitarist, to make sure that success didn't happen again. Reinventing the band into a country rock band where he removed all his fellow original band members in the process. Needless to say, Band of Horses hasn't been on anybody's mind of late. Ben clearly admits that he lost the plot there for a while, and in part it was to cover up his own untrained guitar playing, which that coincidentally his listeners had found endearing. So he had hired musicians, studios, or whatever to try and get around that, and actually wrecked any sort of link that he had with his followers. The sarcastically titled "Things Are Great" is a return to form for a Band of Horses in the indie rock scene. Even though the lyrics are about the way people cope with traumas, the seriousness is disguised by the light uplift in the music. Crutch is clearly the standout song on the album, and even though it's a pleasant album to listen to, I doubt I'll be rushing back to listen to it again.
Nate.
Yeah, I loved it, mate. I thought it was really good. It reminded me of oh, sorry, I broke a nut. Were you expecting me to kill it?
No, I'm waiting for Will's poem about.
He's writing a quick limerick.
In fairness to Will, I'll let you know when one of my favourite bands is coming up, and you can destroy them. But I ask that you give them as fair a listen as I did Sabaton.
I couldn't do that to you, Nathan. It's fine, don't worry.
Band of Horses. Well, you're a better man than me. Band of Horses. I thought this was great. Things are great. I didn't know any of that history, Paul. You are a fountain of knowledge, which is useful because it sort of makes sense to me listening to it. I'd heard of them. They sound like The Cure mixed with Manchester Orchestra and sort of early Kings of Leon to me, or at least this album did anyway. I thought it was indie rock sort of at its finest. It's like prom night music where everybody's wearing oversized suits and too scared to ask anybody else to dance. I kind of like that. Shoegazer kind of 90s vibe. Songs, I would say Tragedy in the Commons, In Need of Repair, and Warning Signs are absolutely brilliant. This is my favorite thing I've listened to since I started doing the rock podcast. From the rock podcast, I should say. There's plenty of better albums, but this is good, and I will listen. In fact, I went out and downloaded it in the camper van to listen to on the road.
Will.
Gonna try and think of a
Fucking
poem, but
indie shit, innit?
my mind is not good enough for writing these poems, so it's indie shit, innit?
Indie shit.
It's just really boring. The guy's voice annoyed me.
Yes, it is.
Band of Horses. You make me sad. You made me run away. I cried a bit, went to bed, cried a bit more, listened to you, carried on crying. Oh, it's just...
Sabaton on masturbated furiously.
Oh, yes. No, I listened like once and couldn't listen again. So that's the most interesting thing I have to say. It made me sad.
I'll agree. I'll agree in a way what Will is saying. It took a number of listeners to get into it. I found anyway.
It did.
I think you break yourself down, mate. You should listen to yourself more. I mean, you sound like your method of liking music is sort of Guantanamo-esque torture.
I'll listen to it so much.
I will listen to it. I will.
It was on the 35th go that I realised I liked it.
I think it's because there's so many genres of music that I listen to. So, some of them take a while for my ear to get trained to it, and then I'm able to appreciate it, or just say, like Glacier, after the second listen to it, I just was not. It was just giving me too much of a headache to carry on. But some of these albums I've really had to listen to a couple of times for it to get tuned in, you know. So
yeah, I get that, man.
Genre bias definitely impacts everything I say, because it's just metal in it. If there's no goblins playing fiddles,
See, I don't think you listen to metal. I don't think you listen to metal.
Oh,
Yeah.
well.
Sorry, mate.
So,
We'll
Nate, I laughed because, and I just nodded at you because you said to me just now, you thought I wasn't going to like it. I laughed because the opposite, because my notes were, I found an album that you put on YouTube, yes? I can't remember what you called it.
My album.
Your album.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you put that on YouTube, and I found it, and I shared it with everybody on Skype through the office. Okay, and my notes were, this is a more polished version, Band of Horses, as Nate's album. I found I laughed because I heard your that music that you put out. I heard that in the style of Band of Horses.
Wow.
And that's why I laughed, because that was my notes. So the fact that you loved it wasn't the fact that I was surprised that you loved it. It was I laughed because that's the note that I put down. It reminded me a little bit, not exactly, but that type of music.
I would suggest that album of mine you're talking about is quite a bit darker than that.
It is darker. It is, but
I know what you mean.
But it felt like that. The pacing, the felt.
Wow,
the lyricism,
I'm gonna have to go and have a long look in the mirror, mate.
It felt like that. And so that's why I laughed, because I went, I got it right. I got it right. Absolutely spot on. So no, I didn't. I wasn't surprised you liked it. I mean, obviously, it was just like. That's what made me chuckle, and I thought, oh god, if he hates this and I mention that, then he hates his own music.
Yeah, I'd have been gutted.
So that's kind of where I like one. I'm kind of with Paul a little bit on this one. I think that it was an enjoyable, nice listen. It wasn't anything amazing. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't terrible. It was just pleasant. I mean, I'll give it about 2 or 3 listens. Really didn't want to listen to it again after that, because it was just not quite my cup of tea. But I did appreciate it. It was just a nice, lovely listen without anything being outstanding about it.
Sure.
Technically, it was good. I mean, but there were some nice moments in it, and it was just a nice, lovely album to listen to. And I think you're right. I think if you're kind of a technical listener to like Nate is, I think I would understand why it would resonate with you from that side of things as well. But yeah, it was a pleasant listen to. That's all I would say, and definitely worth checking out on that one.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to be wallpaper in my bedroom. You know what I mean? Or like It's not groundbreaking. I actually agree, probably more with you. It's a really nice listen, but I think that's more of a commentary on all the other shit you made me listen to. Nice, so.
Well, I didn't make you listen to it, Nate. You begged me to. You said, I'm doing a rock podcast. Would you like to... Please let me.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. Okay, let's go with Renee. Paul, what did you give Band of Horses?
I give it an average 2.5.
Nate?
A 4.
4. That's your joint second highest rating, mate.
Yeah, mate.
Right.
Oh, who else did I give a 4?
Rise Against.
Oh, yeah.
You did, yeah.
I didn't think that was a 4 either, but yeah, cool.
But you loved them so much. You loved them so much. I remember you saying, like, oh, I'm going to give them a 4 because I
didn't
just love
deserve
them.
a 4. It didn't deserve a 4 at all. I'm so sorry.
Will?
Thinking of my theme of the week, and it's 2.
2? You're quite... Can I just say, Will?
He's a nice boy.
Decided
He's a
not
nice
to be
boy.
nice this week.
He's a nice boy who's left his dumbbells out in the corner so we can all know he works out. He's a nice boy.
There's nowhere else in my room to put them.
Will normally would give a 0 or less than a 2 if he hates something like this. I'm surprised.
Oh no,
He's
my
been
hatred
generous.
for those ones that gave 0 to was far outstretched these. This was actually music, at least. Those other ones, the other ones weren't music.
It was. I also give it. I'm the same as Paul. I didn't like it. I did not like it, but it was a pleasure to listen to, and I also give it a 2.5 as well, which probably puts it in our top 30 albums. Who knows? We'll come back and we'll do that as well. So so thank you very much, guys. Album so far of the week. It's going to be between, depending on what Chris's rating is, or on this stage, will be either between Tabor or Sabaton. So we'll have to wait and see what ratings Chris gives.
I'll be shocked if it ain't a 1.
He's given Sabaton everything but Sabaton a 5 and Sabaton a 1.
Yeah, I'm gonna give. I think you're gonna give Sabaton a 2. I think you'll give Sabaton.
I think you are dreaming. I think you're dreaming, mate.
One can hope.
Yeah, the thing is, Nate, you never know with Chris.
No, you don't. He's a proper loose cannon, isn't he?
He's the wild card, yeah.
You never know. So anyway, tomorrow's, if you want to listen to more album reviews for the month, so we'll be back tomorrow with my other cohorts, Trish, Ian, and Simon. Well, we'll be reviewing another 6 albums on the, I think it's a Knucklehead stage. This is Eddie the Head stage. I don't know. One of them was called Eddie the Head. The other one was called Knucklehead. I think this is a Knucklehead stage. But anyway, so tune in tomorrow for more album reviews of the month. And thank you very much, guys. Shame about Chris, because he's just as derisive. I think it'd be interesting to see what he thinks of your poem.
God rest his soul.
Nate, poem, God, be amazing. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Will, thanks very much for joining. Sorry that Nate made you cry.
Pleasure as always.
Why are you
Nathan,
laughing? Sorry, can you just tell me if you were laughing? I wanted to make you laugh. I didn't want to
I was great.
He's not laughing.
I was having a
laughing.
great time. It was great.
And Paul,
Impressive,
thank you very much for joining me today.
Yep.
Keep on rocking, guys, and and we will see you again soon. And thank you very much for. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed our first video podcast review, which we continue to update every month. Next month, I think you guys are going to hopefully coming back. And thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.